Welcome to Toyah and Robert, your deeply unqualified agony aunts, who are here to answer as many of yours. They're pouring in, lovey, so many good questions from you.
Ian Stubbs, you ask, if we could go back in time, what advice would we give to our younger selves?
I would say to the younger Robert, trust your feet when and where they go walking and keep going. And that is advice I've actually always followed.
Okay, I think hindsight is a wonderful thing, and unfortunately we cannot travel back in time. But what I would say to my younger self is just sing all the time. I only learnt this in the last 8 years, really, is that you keep singing, you keep singing, you keep singing. And I would tell my younger self to sing how I sing today, stylistically, and not be afraid of having what is kind of a normal singing voice rather than a stylized singing voice. Would you agree?
Yes, little lovey.
John, you ask, I'm not even going to bother with the surname. You have attended numerous King Crimson concerts from 1971, and you are having a difficult time reconciling the image of dear Robert as the rather stodgy and dour English perfectionist I have witnessed on stage over the years, and the daft farcical chap I see flitting around your garden dressed as a bumblebee. My question is, John says, are there two Roberts?
Well, there's at least two Roberts.
Is that your answer?
Well, I could go further, all right.
Could the other Robert give an answer?
All right, here's this. What criteria do we establish to make any judgment of the private life or person of someone who plays a role and lives in public? What criteria do we determine? Now, for example, I've read lots of received opinion on, for example, the English music press.
Yeah.
On the kind of person that Fripp is.
Do they know you?
No, but there was a period of at least 15 to 20 years after 1975, which was the period of arrogance in English-speaking writers, when the writer was more important than the musician. And I can give you quotes with this nonsense. However, what to do in order to give received opinion a kick? Well, you might put on a bee costume, and may I say I have been heartened by the good comments from you, our chums, online about how good Fripp's legs look in a bee costume.
Yes, now I would say he's the same person throughout time with just a different suit on. Now, lockdown has taught me more about my husband than I have ever learnt in the 34 years we've been married. And one of the things is everything he does is to control destiny. So I would say that Robert is two people. One is the boy from Dorset and the other is the devil. So, Bob, you say, could you just say the surnames for me?
Yes, let me have a look. I would say this is Bob Wygand.
You see, not even he can.
Oh, I haven't got my reading spectacles on. Hi, Bob.
Bob, thank you for this question. You say, Bob, what is the best piece of music paraphernalia we have and we treasure? Memorabilia, he says.
What is yours, little
It's
love?
very easy.
Oh, I know this.
Now, you might notice that in this house, we don't have any of our music awards hanging up. We don't really have pictures of ourselves hanging up because we decide that we live in the present. So I have a London home that's full of all my gold discs and all my acting awards, my singing awards. We just don't live with them. So when the press come to interview us, they come to our London home rather than here. But I used to live in a warehouse in Battersea in London, and Iggy Pop came to rehearse with John Cale for a tour. I think it was late 1979, not 1980. And of course, this was the time of The Passenger and the Idiot, and he left behind his practice travelling acoustic, which I just treasure with my heart. And even though it's probably a £60 acoustic, it has the best sound of all the guitars I have. So that is one of my favourite pieces of memorabilia.
All right. I'm not really a music memorabilia person because not all of my professional memories are ones that I would wish to accompany me into our home. However, there is a category. I keep my used strings. That is, after 1977, I began to keep my used strings. And before then, I used to give to a school pal who would use the strings to fish, as fishing lines.
You're joking.
No, true. And in my used string collection, I have the strings on just about everything from 1977, beginning with Heroes in Berlin.
Can I touch them?
Well, they've moved, they're in store at the moment, moved over from Robert's changing offices.
Can I sniff them?
Yes, dear, in the fullness of time. I also have the strings from Discipline, Scary Monsters.
Wow. But that is just phenomenal.
Well, I think so.
I can say this name. Craig Wheeler, you say on August the 16th, 1986, you walked down the aisle with your beautiful wife to prelude Song of the Gulls. However, you failed to secure artist permission and pay license fees. Your question, after 34 years of wedded bliss, how much in royalties does he owe you and how can he get that money to you? Does he send a cheque?
All right, there is a story or two here. May I tell them, lovey? All right, just tell me to shut up. Prelude Song of the Gulls, I wrote that between 4 and 6 in the morning, coming back from sessions in 1971 when I was a lodger with the late Judy Dybel and her husband Simon Stable. And I would write out these parts, have 2 hours sleep and then go in to begin recording. And I conducted a small chamber orchestra with a pencil. They ignored all my directions and followed the first violin. That was great. Now, Prelude Song of the Gulls was reviewed by Lester Bangs, editor of Cream magazine.
Sorry, I know what's coming.
As music that sounded like music for an advertisement for a vaginal deodorant.
I'm sorry, but I find that so insulting. Those kind of deodorants don't deserve that kind of music.
Well, I'll move on from there. So how much does dear Craig owe? $4,823,382.43. And will you please send a cheque to Shalal, a wonderful charity in Penzance, Cornwall, of which I am a patron. So that's Shalal, Shallal, Shalal in Penzance. They are waiting for your money.
Wow, okay. Now, as you probably guessed, my husband selects the questions. So if you have anything to ask about yourselves to do with Agony Aunts, perhaps you should just put Toyah in capital letters and I will try and find those questions before my husband's selection of anything he can talk about himself gets chosen for these broadcasts. So we're on our last question. Oh, I dread to think how much you're going to talk about yourself on this one. This is from Sean A. Curtin. Oh, I love this one. What methods do you and Robert use for ensuring a great idea is remembered when you're out and about? Okay, I speak now, okay? Zip.
I have nothing to say.
This time last year, I was a judge on the Drake-Yolanda songwriting competition. It was a phenomenal privilege to be judge on this with Yolanda Brown, the world classic jazz saxophonist. Oh, she is so gorgeous. So here I was in this room with Yolanda and 6 teams of composers. And what absolutely staggered me and made me realise I completely live in the old world up until that point was they were composing songs on the spot and they were doing it into their iPhones. So the girls were writing lyrics into the iPhones. If they had sudden inspiration, they used the voice app on the iPhone and just sang it onto the iPhone so they could back reference it. It never occurred to me to do this. So now, when I'm in the car on the way to Simon Darlow's for a writing session, I pull into a lay-by and just sing into the phone. And this is something I'm not afraid to do if I'm shopping, if I'm in a queue at the post office, or even if I'm in the middle of an interview on another line. I just get onto my voice app and just sing it into that voice app. It's just the most precious way of keeping the memory of an idea. How do you keep your ideas?
I keep them to myself.
Come on, open.
I
speak.
have nothing to say.
What? How do you do it? Yours are more complex.
All right, since you forced me into this way, I'm old school. There, look. I carry this around on the road, 51 years on the road. Not so much now. And new self, I send myself an email.
Yeah, but email's great, yeah.
I have nothing more to say.
Well, have you got magic chords for this
Of
week?
course I have magic chords out to the wazoo. So let's see, here we are. Look. This is not quite a magic chord. This is not quite a magic fairy fingers. It's a combination of both.
Okay, do you want to?
So look, very...
I want people to see what you're doing.
Oh, I'm not sure it's that interesting.
Yes, it is.
So here we are. This is the C major tuning, C pentatonic.
Sorry, I leant into the camera. I really apologise.
I'm sure your fan club is happy, dear. So look, here we have, not necessarily a magic chord, F sharp minor with a D, D major, but the combination of chords and fairy fingers. But you may notice I had to raise my sleeve there, where I have a cufflink of Father Christmas, because as you may remember, we've begun Christmas early, and boy do I need a Christmas at home with my little lovey after 50 years on the road.
Yeah, it's been good. Now, this week we've been working on my new solo album, which Simon Darlow, myself and Robert are the main contributors to, and Robert's playing has been absolutely breathtaking. And what has allowed Robert working with me is, because I'm very much pop rock, is that he's been able to revisit some of the kind of stylistic things he so excels at within this genre this week. And you've been absolutely brilliant. So why are you playing under the name of Bobby Willcox?
Well, this has to do with being a woman, especially a little woman, working in the music industry and in the wider society at large. And we have found that if Robert Fripp is with Toyah Willcox on a Toyah Willcox album, it's actually a Robert Fripp album. Oh, and the wife might have something to do with it. But meanwhile, can we talk to Robert on this interview with Toyah, please? And this so infuriates me. It's profoundly unfair to my wife. It's also profoundly unfair to me. So Bobby Willcox suggests that all the criteria and received opinions you bring to any guitar playing by Robert Fripp, you leave them behind or you do not enter the door to the world of musical Willcox.
It's so interesting because lockdown has helped us see this through the magnifying glass even more. That it's got to the point where I now have to compose my emails and get Robert to send them. Because if Robert sends them, everyone goes, oh yes, that's absolutely brilliant. If I send the emails, they either get ignored or they say, we'll think about it. It's extraordinary. So another thing I want to ask you, what are you doing?
I'm moving the camera so they can see more of you.
Now, I talked this morning on Toyah at Home about this thing about finding happiness, and you saying that I cannot tell people in this time of great trouble and great worry that they must find happiness. And I explained, well, When you allow happiness to get through your body, no matter how, whether you trick yourself or whether you do it as a yoga exercise or you watch comedy, your body can work the law of attraction, which makes life better. It makes you possibly healthier, but also the universe gives you positive responses. And you said you had an exercise.
It's called the exercise of the assumption of virtue, but I'm not going to go on about it now. What I would say, I saw my wife's Toyah at home this morning, and I was very moved by it. I felt it was very powerful. Yeah.
Well, you can't leave people hanging. What is this exercise?
Right, the exercise of the assumption of virtue. What is your ideal state or condition? Define it and describe it, and then write down the specific characteristics you would recognize of that state. They will all be positive, and then you may not, for example, you may not feel happy, you may not be happy, but you will act as if you are happy in your physical demeanor, in your dealing with others. Instead of being a little grumpy, we're positive, engaging, friendly and supportive. And the actions of our bodies changes our state on the inside, and then everything begins to move in a different direction. So this is the assumption of virtue, also known as the as-if.
I will say Robert is much more articulate than me, whereas I'm very instinctive. So thank you for that. I think that was absolutely beautiful.
Thank you, lovey.
So ladies and gentlemen, don't forget Toyah and Robert's Sunday lunch. It is obviously Halloween, and we've resisted this being a Halloween kind of event. Also, your questions have always got a slightly more serious feel about them, and we want to we want to appreciate that and show you we appreciate that. So we might just preview our tomorrow's Sunday lunch a little earlier. You will be warned if we do, because it is a Halloween Sunday lunch and it's an absolute blinder. So please, we wish you love, happiness, we wish you safety, and we wish you a bright and beautiful future. We will see you next week, and obviously Toyah and Robert's Sunday lunch. So take care, lots of love.
Be well, stay safe.
And remember, if you want a question about you, put Toyah help on Toyah Official Facebook. Bye for now.